Hi, this is Dr. Tangri. I wanted to make a little video to help people help themselves through doing little exercises or movements or touching certain places that can help them to reset some of their own circuitry. Now, in neural organization technique, it's very in-depth and there's a sequence how to correct the nervous system or the computer programs, if you will. But sometimes we bonk our head in the corner of a cupboard or we slip and fall. And, you can sometimes right away do some resetting on your body that might prevent all the circuitry from going back into disorganization. What have you got to lose by trying it? And if it does go into disorganization and you start noticing things are not getting better, then you might need another session or a checkup. So these can all be applied to adults, children. You can teach children how to do them. There are some chiropractic kinesiology techniques such as Edu-K or Edu-Kinesiology, or Brain Gym is another one that was developed to teach kids how to do little exercises and reset themselves. A lot of this information was done without the knowledge of neural organization technique. So chiropractors and kinesiologists might have been doing some of these points, but if you understand the principles and practices of neural organization technique, a lot of it stems from disorganization from a cranial injury. So if you were to just do these exercises or these corrections that I'm showing, they might start going to deficit or disorganization because you have to have the main system reset, which is what an N.O.T treatment would do. But afterwards, after you've had the N.O.T treatment, then how can you maintain or do some self-corrections? One of the master points has to do with how this side of the brain talks to this side of the body and this to this. And this is how most animals are hardwired in what we call a cross-crawl mechanism. Sometimes you can see people when they walk, they kind of one arm swings and the other doesn't, or one leg seems to have a longer stride than the other. And this is a sign of what we call neurological switching. Okay, and sometimes kids will reverse their B and their D or their P and their Q. Yeah, these are all signs that the computer is not working in its efficient cross mechanism. So they look a little uncoordinated, things like that when they're kicking a soccer ball or hitting a ball or hand-eye coordination. So right where the collarbone meets the sternum, which is the breastbone, there's a soft spot. If you just go anywhere, you don't have to worry about being right on it. It's just generally the soft spot right about there. These are two acupuncture points called kidney 27. And in Brain Gym, for the kids, they called them the brain buttons. So you just rub them from side to side. Okay? Just for about 10, 15 seconds. They might be tender in the beginning. You don't have to go harder and faster and spend an hour on it. It's just like this, rubbing like that. Or spin a little bit. And that's it. Okay? Now, there's another point that is the belly button, okay? And this is a master fuse for all your organs. So you can pull down on the belly button and check the status of the uterus, bladder, up in here to the liver, up in there to the pancreas. But the idea is this is like a general breaker box. It's a master point because if you think about it, the umbilical cord, that's where all the life force was coming in as the embryo was developing. So it has this connection to how those organs or viscera developed. And sometimes we could eat a bad piece of meat or something like that, or get some kind of bacteria, and it's like an overload on the system. So that part of the breaker box, like the liver got overloaded or ate too much sugar and the pancreas got overloaded up to the brain and it said, I got kind of like, I'm not really back on this pathway going up towards the pancreas. It doesn't really work like that neurologically, energetically, but you get the big idea. So one master thing to do is just rub your belly button. Okay, is you just rub it in a clockwise direction. Okay, and then this can become disorganized to the right brain and left brain, so you can do the two together. And then another point is the tip of your tailbone. Okay, you just slide down right until above your anal sphincter, and you'll feel the tip of your tailbone. Okay, and that's a master point for how your lymphatics or your fluids drain for, I'm not going to explain it, but it's a master point for how the back of the body talks to the front of the body. So what you can do is you can rub the tailbone at the same time as you're doing these two, and then you can also do the tailbone to this. So these are just some master points. So I've explained them, but really you can just do like that, do like that, do like that, and do like that. Took 3 seconds, 5 seconds. You can spend a little longer with it. But these are some master points. So if your kids are having trouble learning, concentrating, sometimes they might have become switched this side to this side, front to back, or they're saying, I got a tummy ache, I got something going on. So the body's working less efficiently. So we just reset the master breaker box, and maybe the body goes, oh, I'm back on again. I got to take care of that. And then all of a sudden the tummy ache starts to go away within minutes, days, hours, but fairly quickly. Okay, so those are the switching points. Now, another thing as an exercise, because when kids have birth traumas, cranial injuries, disorganization, they will exhibit as what they're calling learning disabilities, ADD, HD, ADHD. These are names, but basically they're disorganized. They read, but they forget what they read. They get confused, or they're listening, but they're not really listening. Their eyes are darting around. Eye movements are very important because it depends where they got hit or what part of the brain has lost access. You can't access that part of the brain. So we can do enforcing, after a treatment, especially in N.O.T, have the patient do some marching, okay? Or walking. Walking is so great because you are just doing cross crawl reflex. And so you can do this faster, you can do this on the spot, and then you can do it while you're moving your eyes up, down, right, left. If you feel a little dizzy, support yourself and just practice like that. Up, down, right, left. Okay. And sometimes you might want to do this with the eyes closed, but if you're going to, sometimes your balance might go off. So do it with your eyes closed. You can do any of these things with the eyes closed, eyes open. Think like a computer. Where did the body get disorganized? Where am I having trouble? Oh, it's in the daytime I'm tired. Or at the nighttime I wake up and I feel confused when I want to go to sleep. The body's saying I'm not safe or I'm not organized in this particular environment. And that's why I'm going into a state of defense. Okay. So what else do we have? Okay, balance. Now we fell. So that means, or we were moving, or we were avoiding something, a ball came at us, or a kid's head when they were playing. So this is the balance centers, or what we call the vestibular. Okay. And this is where the neurology and all the calculation for where is movement going on, whether it's the car moving and you're trying to stay centered in it, or whether it's you are moving and trying to dance around and move around. So if you ended up taking a hit, a fall, a slip, this was doing calculation at the moment of the circuit breakers going off. So how can you reset this? What you can do is activate them by just pulling lightly on the ears. Okay, now then you can initiate movement and you can just do forward, backward, side to side. You can incorporate the eye movements at the same time. Okay, and it's almost like the computer just starts going, oh, boom, 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 and starts resetting itself. In acupuncture, too, they say just pulling on the ears activates, there's so many, all the acupuncture points, all the organ systems. The body copies itself so many times over, like reflexology and things like that. There's many different ways to get into the system. Well, acupuncture and pulling on the ears is a good way to reset the circuits and wake you up. If you're ever feeling kind of, you've been on the computer or doing something and you're tired, just pull your ears out. And then breathing is always very powerful because you're bringing the energy or the chi into the whole body and bringing focus into it. So don't get just heady with these things and say, oh, I'm moving my eyes. Feel the whole unit as one coming back online. Okay. What else can I offer you? Eye movement switches. There are, yeah, marching, we said, pulling on the ears. Oh, yes, you can also do this because the jaw stays tight when we get hit. And so if we're in disorganization, the body says, I'm weaker in the jungle. So what it does is it tightens the jaw. And so what you can do is disarm the jaw. So yawning is an exercise. Then you can combine that. While you're doing this, you can also move it around. You could do it to your visuals. You can do it with your eyes moving around. I had a dog jump off the back of a truck years ago, landed in front of my motorbike, and boom, I went to the ground, bang, Helmet came off the second hit, bang. Even though I was in shock, even though I had a little bit of a broken rib from the gas tank, the first thing I did, remembering, is I got up. They thought I was in shock, but I was present enough to go, oh boy, disorganized. And I got up and started walking up the hill, pulling my ears up, down, right, left, with my eyes open, with my eyes closed, thinking about the shock I'm in, breathing, screaming to get it out of there, fight, flight. This is a disarming mechanism, to scream, to yell, to bark. So keep these things in mind. When the child falls, don't just smother it. This is how it resets. It crawls to mama. It starts the reflexes, runs to mama, mama, papa. That's the whole reboot, because we have these natural abilities to reset ourselves in the jungle. It's been going on for millions of years. But we need to know these reflexes and then know how to work with them, instead of saying, no, 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 stop crying, come here, and you hold them. You still want to console the child. But sometimes I've told the mothers, when they fall or whatever, just kind of take 10 steps back and say, come here, come here. So at least they initiate those first steps running to you, rather than the mother running straight to them, holding them, and stopping them from their body needing first to have a few seconds of release. Then comes the disarm. Then you give them the consoling and the love. Okay? And then they come out of it, and then they do it again, because that's what we do. Another point is something called lazy eights. If they have this disorganization, what you can do is you take your hand and you draw an 8. Okay, this helps synchronize both sides of the brain. You can do it with that hand too. You can do it in both directions. Okay, and then you take both hands together and you do the 8s. Okay, and you can go in both directions. You can combine any of these things: eyes up, down, right, left, mouth open and closed, breathing, whatever. Okay, another tip. Let's see. Right here, they always show people going, he's so intelligent. Well, there is an actual point for concentration here. So you can sometimes touch this and touch the belly button or below. And this kind of brings, like, people stressed out, they get nervous stomach, or they can't focus when they're, going into an exam. This helps. Okay, you can also touch this to the tip of the tailbone. This calms things down. You don't have to do this every day, but once in a while, you might want to do like Qigong. You might want to do this as a routine once a week, just to keep your circuits on. Emotional points. If they're located, their stomach points. Oh, I was so nervous to my stomach. Well, the actual stomach reflexes, one of them, are located here. And in applied kinesiology, chiropractic kinesiology, we call these the ESR, or emotional stress release points. That just by holding these, all of a sudden, it's like the body says, oh, I can go into the emotional body and release. And I mean, if you look at it, when we bang our elbow, we immediately go to where the healing's needed. You bang your knee, ow, 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 and you start healing it. You're touching it. But when you see a person going, oh, I don't know why my elbow's hurting, I don't know why my back, the body is innately showing you that this one has something to do with the emotional. Otherwise, you'd be touching the elbow. So you can use these points to go and talk to your body, as far as if you have a pain point, just hook this in and think about the pain. Or if the child is having behavioral issues, or the adult, I don't seem to socialize well, etc. They've had disorganization and they're wondering what's wrong with me, or they don't even question what's wrong with me. They're just sometimes putting your hands on here and visualizing it melting away. The stress or the issue, etc., can all of a sudden open up the consciousness, and the problem can release or start to heal. So very powerful, those 2 points. Then again, affirmations. After you've dumped files, it doesn't hurt to put positive affirmations. I am smart rather than I'm stupid. I'm going to do fine on my exam. My mother and father love me. Even though I'm having a new little brother, I'm still loved. These are things that come up in the session sometimes on adults. It shows up something at 2 years of age, and then, oh, that's when my brother was born. Well, the kid didn't get told, hey, we love you just as much, but the parents focused on the newborn, which is normal. They've got to give all this attention. Well, the older child feels neglected, even though the parents didn't neglect the child. It's how the child felt. And so talking to them, or later on affirmations and telling, not only communicating to the child, but they can do certain things. Adults, the same thing. I am in a loving relationship. I love who I am. These are very powerful statements. I would say probably 70% of the people, that might be conservative, when I muscle test them and have them say, I love myself, they go weak, which doesn't mean they hate themselves. It means they're not 100% clear with that statement. So you could also do things like this and hook those things in. Touching your forehead, touching your gut. I completely and totally love myself on all levels. Now that also, there's a technique you might want to look on YouTube, and these things called EFT, or emotional freedom technique. They found that there's certain acupuncture points that hook into the system, and then you can make positive statements, or you can release that even though I have this desire to smoke cigarettes, I completely and totally love and accept myself. Because really it comes down to accepting who you are and what you are as a start, instead of criticizing and saying, I'm smoking, I shouldn't smoke, I don't deserve, blah, 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 I'm bad. First, we start with these positive affirmations. Then you can start going, my need or desire to smoke is released from my body, mind, and spirit. Okay, you can get creative. Okay, you're not going to harm yourself by putting these positive statements in. Okay, and what else? That's a lot of information right there. When it comes to holding your corrections on the nutritional side, be very careful of things like artificial sugars, you know, diet drinks, because they have aspartame in them, or any other kind of chemicals, which are not very healthy for the body. Okay. Things like hydrogenated oils, the cookies, the cream cookies, and things like that. Partially hydrogenated, these can trigger and blow out some of the circuitry. Like food colorings too, licorices and things that have red dye number 2, red dye number 5. There are a lot of these things that have them. Also anything with MSG, a lot of the sauces. And now they've categorized MSG as a spice. So on the back of the bag of chips, sour cream and onion, it could say spices, but really there's MSG in there, which is what we call a neuroexcitotoxin. It gets them jacked up, okay? And so, we could do the corrections on the child, but then if they go home and they're eating some of this stuff, it could cause them to still be having some of their reactivity. So just be mindful of some of those things, and you could always find an alternative replacement rather than those are bad, you can never have that. Just choose excellent quality rather than less excellent or quality, by just knowing. Also a good thing is probiotics. Now, a lot of times people are marketing in yogurt and think, oh yeah, they get probiotics. These are low level, okay? It's not like they're putting high levels of good probiotics. So you might want to do some research, maybe consult with a naturopath or somebody, or do some online research. And it's a good idea to take a probiotic. Acidophilus is more for the intestine, small intestine. And then lactobacillus is more for the large intestine. There's two different types. Well, there's many different types of bacteria, positive bacteria that help us digest our food and live. A lot of this is initiated through breastfeeding. So people who didn't get breastfeeding, they never had the reflex that activated their good gut bacteria from growing. So if a child is born cesarean, and then that's a stress in itself, and then if they didn't get breastfeeding or much, it's a good idea to get a probiotic and consult with a naturopath or somebody, and get a child build up the gut flora. They don't have to stay on this forever, but you get the bacteria to a point where the good bacteria are outweighing the number of the bad bacteria, because when the balance goes off, then you start having weakness in the system, health issues, etc. Okay, and then it's a good habit to take some of these like once, twice, 3 times a week as a preventative, because just some of the food we have, we touch our food, we touch our fingers. It's the way the jungle works. So you don't have to be addicted to, oh, I got to take more products, but it's a healthy habit. Finally, detoxing. You also want to help eliminate toxins, and toxins do not have to be necessarily poisons. All our food, things like that, air, there's pollution, things like that. So one habit that consistently seems to come up is about drinking lemon and water in the morning, first thing on an empty stomach. okay, is you just cut half a lemon, any kind of lemon or lime, whatever you feel comfortable with, and squeeze it and put it into a glass. Start the kettle and don't get it to boiling, just get it warm. And then they say you could add a pinch of salt. Now, don't use white salt if possible, like just bleached commercial salt. It's been bleached to make it white. Try to find sea salt, Himalaya salt, natural salts, and use just a pinch of that. This starts the stomach, gets it woken up, which is why they call it break fast. You've been fasting all night by sleeping and not eating, so inside the body is taking time to clean up and do what it has to do and say, oh yeah, let's process all that food, get it ready because tomorrow we got to start fresh. And so the first thing you want to do is not overload the system with coffees and heavy things like, lots of food and heavy greasy foods. You want to wake up the system first. And this also starts dumping out some of the toxins or some of the yesterday's waste products. And you'll probably find from doing lemon and water in the morning, and then, go do your shower, your little exercises, etc. And then after 20 minutes or 30 minutes, you can go and start eating or do what your normal route, have some fruit or whatever it is you like to do. But that lemon water habit will start to regulate your system in the morning, and you will probably find within a week or two that you're getting up in the morning and you're starting to have a bowel movement within 5 minutes, which is a sign of health. As soon as your feet hit the ground, within 5 to 15 minutes, you need to evacuate yesterday's food and get ready for the food today. And the lemon water really helps that. Okay. And one thing that I learned recently regarding parasites, because these seem to be prevalent, people say, no, 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 we don't have, but a lot of people are carrying parasites. So they do parasite cleanse, but you have to also eliminate the foods that have the parasites. Otherwise, what's the point? It's a temporary thing. Well, I saw something on some site, some channel, and the doctor was saying that walnuts have something in them that inhibits the reproductive capabilities and maturation of the parasites. So by just having a walnut a day or a couple walnuts, clean, organic would be ideal in anything if you can. Is a good habit. You could throw some, crush some up and put it in yogurt and give it to the kids. And you're just doing something positive if you can. All right, so I hope that helps. I'm sure it will. And have fun with that. You won't be able to harm yourself by doing some of these things. So enjoy.